So this is going to be a quick one. Try to get through this content as quickly as possible. It's Friday. I don't want to keep you here longer than you need to be. So I'm going to try to get in and out and get you on with your day. But I appreciate you chopping it up with me, your man Louie T, here on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 159th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on today's show. Got a couple of interesting topics to get to. I'm not going to delay. I'm going to get straight to the proceedings this evening. Like I said, I want to get in and out of today's show. And so let's jump straight into the Gem Droppin Session. Shall we? I think we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, the 2021 NFL Draft is in the books. It's in the rearview mirror, but we're not done talking about it, right? So, I got to thinking. I was sitting down and I was thinking about some show topics and things that I wanted to discuss because it's been a while since we've chopped it up. Obviously, we jumped on Wednesday night, the schedule release, and I saw a great tweet from somebody, I can't remember who it was. Somebody said, though, I love how the NFL packages up this schedule release, which is essentially ground beef, and makes it out to be filet mignon. And that's essentially what they've done. I told you, the marketing machine that is the National Football League, there is no one better. There is no one better at taking a product and elevating it to new heights and making it seem like it's something more than what it is. And so who really gave a shit about the schedule other than, hey, I want to see when my team is playing who and how many primetime games we have. Like, that was my thing back in the day. Like, it wasn't a big deal. Like, people are leaking, and I did this already, so I'm not gonna do this again, but people are leaking parts of the schedule throughout the course of the day. Like, really? We're starving for NFL content that much. They've brainwashed us that much that we're starving for the schedule release to the point now where they're leaking parts of it throughout the course of the day leading up to the 8 o'clock hour that night. It's amazing. But I digress. The draft is its own entity. Just like the combine has morphed into this larger than life program that we sit in front of our television sets for 7 to 9 hours at a time watching guys run around in underwear. It's crazy. But I'm guilty of it because I do it. I watch. But I told you, if I didn't do what I did, I wouldn't watch. I always tell you, I watch so you don't have to. In any event, the NFL draft is its own spectacle. It's its own animal. And we talk about all these different things surrounding the draft, and then it happens and then it's over. But I was very intrigued by this draft class, specifically the quarterbacks, because we talked so much about all the trades that were made prior to the draft and how these trades were going to impact the draft. And then we talked about where these quarterbacks were going to go. There was this talk, and I was guilty of it. I fell victim to this conversation that was had about, could there be 5 quarterbacks going in the first 5 picks or 4 picks, excuse me. 4 quarterbacks, first 4 picks. I've never seen it before. Maybe it's happened in the past sometime, but I've never seen it personally myself. It did not take place. And we kind of got that sense, as we got closer and closer. The Falcons weren't going to take a quarterback. And furthermore, they weren't going to trade out of the pick to allow someone to come and take a quarterback. So we kind of got that sense. But I got to thinking about, the topic that I wanted to discuss. And I looked at the quarterbacks, and in the last decade or so, it's become rare. The Mahomes situation kind of brought it back to the consciousness of NFL fans, and it became a thing, a discussion that teams wanted to have. But realistically speaking, teams that draft first-round quarterbacks, they're playing that guy in year 1, and usually they're playing that guy relatively early in year 1. And if they have it their way, they'll play from week 1. And so outside of Mahomes, really, over the last decade, you won't find many first-round quarterbacks that didn't play within the first 5 weeks of their team's season. I think first 5 or 6 weeks of their team's season. Dwayne Haskins was one. Jake Locker is another. And Patrick Mahomes is the only other guy that didn't play essentially within the first 5 to 6 weeks of the season starting. For most guys, they start week 1. If they're not starting by week 1, they're starting week 2 or 3. So in Baker Mayfield's case, I think he started week number 2, if not 2, definitely 3, when he was able to come on and snap the Browns' losing streak that they had over the course of like a year and a half. I think about Deshaun Watson. I don't think he started week 1, but I think he started week 2 or 3 that season in his rookie year. Lit it up for a short period of time and then tore his ACL, but he was a firestorm when he first took the field, and it didn't take him long to get on the field. Last year, we saw, or 2 years ago, Kyler Murray jumped on the scene week 1, never looked back. Last year, Joe Burrow started week 1, never looked back. Tua Tagovailoa was a guy that waited a while. I think they didn't play him until after the 6th game of the season. I think he started week 7 or 8, excuse me. I think the Dolphins had a bye in week 7. They went into the bye week at 3-3. They came out of the bye and they started 2 in week 8, if I'm not mistaken. But you don't see it very often. All right, guys that get drafted relatively high, they start relatively early. Well, this is a different, unique set of circumstances in 2021 because we know the number 1 and number 2 guys are going to start day 1. Barring any kind of catastrophe in camp, these guys are going to start week 1 for their squads. Trevor Lawrence going to start week 1 for the Jags right out of the gate. Same thing can be said for Zach Wilson in New York with the Jets. After that, however, there are 3 more first-round quarterbacks. The question now becomes Trey Lance at number 3. You've got Justin Fields at number 11, and you've got Mac Jones at 15. Where are these guys going to get their first starts? And who's going to be the first one to hit the field as a starter for their respective team? Lance in San Francisco, presumably behind Jimmy Garoppolo. Could Trey Lance start week 1? He could. Is he going to? Highly unlikely, if you ask me. Highly unlikely. He's got to wow them in camp and show that he's got a grasp, a firm one, of the playbook. And look, he's not going to have everything down pat. None of these rookies are. But you want a guy to have enough of a feel for what you want to do that you can call enough plays that you're not out there vanilla like it's preseason. And so I think Trey Lance has a little ways to go. Remember, this guy only had 1 year of starting at North Dakota State for all intents and purposes. So he's got a little bit of a learning curve, so to speak. I don't expect him to start week 1. Justin Fields, I think that I told you the Bears were lying. Through their teeth, I could see it a mile away. I told you guys, that's where that psychology background comes into play. Because I told you, I said, anytime someone keeps complimenting and goes out of their way to compliment a guy over the top, they're plotting. And I said the Bears are looking to do something big at the quarterback position. Because you can't keep telling me that you love Andy Dalton. You don't love Andy Dalton that damn much, okay? You gave him a 1-year contract. You don't love him that damn much. So I knew they were plotting. But they do love Andy Dalton enough to start in week 1. I don't think they plan on starting Justin Fields week 1. And I wouldn't start Justin Fields week 1. Just like I said with Trey Lance, I'm saying the same thing with Justin Fields. He's not ready. Probably the most ready quarterback of the group that we're going to talk about is Mac Jones. And again, they got Cam Newton. Cameron Newton is not sitting on the bench. However, of the 3 quarterbacks, he would probably be the guy that you'd be able to put the most on his plate early and have him be able to digest it, gobble it up, digest it, and be able to go on the field and perform. And so, of the 3 quarterbacks, I'm going to pose this question to you. I'm going to give you my answer here in a second, but I'm going to pose this question to you. Of the second wave of quarterbacks, so you know the first 2 are starting week 1, okay? Trevor Lawrence is starting week 1 for the Jags. Zach Wilson starting week 1 for the Jets. Of the next group, okay, 3 through 5, the other 3 first-round picks, Trey Lance, who went 3rd overall to the San Francisco 49ers, Justin Fields, who went 11th overall to the Chicago Bears, who traded up with the Giants to land Fields, and Mac Jones, Michael Jones, 15th overall to the New England Patriots. Which one of those guys starts first? in the 2021 season? That's the question I'm going to pose to you guys out there. In my mind, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the guy that makes the first starting appearance of that group is Michael Jones. The miggity Mac Daddy. The miggity Mac. Mac Jones makes the first start of that group. Here's my logic behind that. In San Francisco, they've got a really good defense, we think. We know they can run the shit out of the football. No matter who's healthy, who's not healthy, doesn't matter who they put back there at running back, they're going to run this shit out of the football. That's what Kyle Shanahan does. So they're going to be among the best in the league at rushing the football. So I think they're going to have a chance to win early in the season. And if they don't start Trey Lance early, I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have a chance to steady the ship early. He's on borrowed time. We can all acknowledge that. But I think he's going to be able to stave off Trey Lance longer than Cam Newton will be able to in New England as we get to Justin Fields in Chicago. I just flat out don't think he's ready. I think Trey Lance could be more ready than Justin Fields simply because he essentially ran the same type of stuff. I said this from day one. I was in front of this, and I told you I'll toot my own horn, toot toot, when it needs to be tooted. All right, and when I'm wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong. Got no problems doing it. I tell you all the time, and I offer up double O's when necessary. But I'll be quick to tell you, hey, I got that one all sorts of wrong. I was all off on that one. But I'm gonna toot my horn, toot toot. Okay, I said from day one when the trade was made, it's for Trey Lance, and you had Adam Schefter, you had all the draft beatniks of Mel Kiper and all of these guys falling for the banana in the tailpipe, telling you guys out there, oh, the pick is Mac Jones. Schefter was adamant it was Mac Jones, and I told you all along, and I never wavered. It's Trey Lance. Just go watch the tape. They're running the same stuff. So I said, his skill set fits Shanahan's offense. And you can't convince me that somebody was trading up from 12 to 3 to get Mac Jones. You were really that terrified that Mac Jones wasn't going to be there? I just didn't buy that. Not one bit. So, anyhow, I think Lance could play week 1. I really do. I just don't think there's any reason to rush him when you've got a perfectly good veteran that you're paying a ton of money to that can carry the load while the young fella learns. There's no reason to rush this. You don't have to. In Jacksonville, just get the party started early because we're not any good anyway. We're still trying to figure some shit out. Same thing with the Jets. Whereas San Francisco, they were just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Like, there's expectation here. So let's not just turn it over to the young fella so fast when we got a veteran here that took us to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So Lance, I think, could get in there, but I don't feel the same way with Fields. I feel like they want to make sure they take their time with this because the Bears, they've effed up the quarterback position so many times, it's not funny, and they don't want to F this one up. All right, they're still rebounding from the Mitchell Trubisky debacle. They want to get this one right, and they're going to do everything they can to make sure that they handle Justin Fields with kid gloves. So they're going to make sure that Andy Dalton has fully regurgitated, emptied his entire contents of his stomach onto the football field and onto himself before they take him out of the lineup. He's got to absolutely be the reason the Bears don't have a chance to win on every Sunday, or he's got to get injured like he did last year when he sustained a concussion. One or the other has to take place for Justin Fields to see the field in Chicago. Which then takes me to Mac Jones. Cam Newton was benched 82 times last year. A full 82 times. An NBA full regular season. That's how many times Cam Newton got benched last year. So don't think for 1 second that they will hesitate to pull the trigger. Bow, bow on Cam Newton this year. If Cam starts to struggle, and I'm not saying at the first sign of trouble they're bailing on Cam Newton, but if Cam has a stinker in, say, week 5, and then he follows that up with another stinker in week 6, and it's halftime and he's stinking it up, don't think for 1 second they won't pull the trigger. If Mac Jones is showing them something in practice and they like what they saw in camp and in the preseason, and he's been soaking up all the knowledge in the meetings and they feel good about it, don't think for 1 second they won't pull the trigger on Cam's ass and say, all right, Mac, get in there. Let's see what you got. They did it last year several times. They'll do it this year, and they got a reason to do it this year. Last year, he was like, what you going to do? You going to put in Billy Ho? Like, what you really going to do? Are you trying to sell me on the kid from Auburn, Jarrett Stidham? Seriously, is that what we're doing right now? Remember when that was a thing? Hey, the Patriots might start Jarrett Stidham. Remember when that was a thing over the summer? When there was a brief moment. It didn't last long, but they were talking about, hey, it's not guaranteed that Cam's going to have the job in New England. Jarrett Stidham. I was like, seriously, are we doing this thing? Are we doing this Jarrett Stidham song and dance? Are we really going to do that? That ended quickly, and it didn't end well for New England. Anyway, I digress. I could see Mac Jones in the game. And the Patriots they host Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football in week number 4. If Cam goes out there, because Belichick's going to want that one bad. Did you hear Tom Brady's dad, Tom Brady Sr., already say, hey, we going to bust them up. They ain't got nothing for us. He's been flapping his gums a lot lately. Tom Brady Sr.'s feeling really good. His son has emboldened him to start talking all types of shit. I mean, he is just talking his shit. And I don't have any problem with it. When your son has 7 rings, he can say whatever he wants, and you can say whatever the hell you want. So I got no problems with Tom Brady Sr. spouting off at the mouth. But you don't think Belichick is taking all of this shit in? Tom Brady Sr. had a lot to say when Tom Brady Jr. left New England, okay? And he didn't have a lot of pleasant things to say about Bill Belichick. And he still doesn't have a lot to say pleasant about Belichick and the Patriots organization and how things ended. And so you don't think for 1 second Bill Belichick is going to want to win that one on a national stage with the prodigal son returning home to Gillette Stadium. You don't think he's going to want to beat Tom Brady in the worst way right after a long day? Are you serious? And if Cam goes out there and shows his ass and goes 9 of 23 and 2 interceptions for 86 yards and they get stomped 34-10, you don't think he's thinking next week, I may have to start Mac Jones? I can't have this shit happen again? You're a damn lie. You're a damn fool if you think for 1 second that they're going to sit around and allow Cam Newton to tank the season like he did last year. And again, in Cam's defense, and I said this a million times already, they didn't have shit out there, man. Cam was working with a bare cupboard. Still, he did not play well, okay? There's no excuse for that. He did not play well. It wasn't a lot out there around him. I will grant you that. He didn't make anything better, though. He didn't make the situation any better. So, for me, when I view it, I think that the guy that has a chance to start first is Mac Jones in New England. I think he's the guy that can digest the playbook the fastest. I think he's the guy that teams trust to be able to go through his progressions and get the football where it needs to go. And unlike the other 2 guys, he doesn't have to rely on his legs, to extend things and make things happen. He can be surgical from the pocket. And I think that because the Patriots have come from a system or quarterback that was very much like Mac Jones, or a carbon copy, a lot of people will say, they're comfortable calling a game that makes Mac Jones comfortable. So if there's one thing, and I'm not a massive Josh McDaniels fan, but the one thing I will say about Josh McDaniels is he is great at adjusting to the talent that he has, adjusting to the quarterback that is under center, adjusting his game plan to fit whatever is best for the team that particular week. We always talk about the Patriots in that light, and Josh McDaniels is the reason that they're able to do that. He's an exceptional offensive mind, and I think he could take 1 week Cam Newton being in, and then the very next week go to Mac Jones and a drop back offense and game plan and do it seamlessly. So I think it's going to be Mac Jones that gets the start out of the 3 first. What says you out there? Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. Who starts first? Who gets the first start among those 3 quarterbacks? in the 2021 upcoming regular season. So I want to quickly read a spot, then we'll come back and we'll jump into In Case You Missed It, right after a word from one of our sponsors. Want to take this time to thank Manscaped for sponsoring this podcast. Spring has sprung, and there's a whole new line of products available for you via manscaped.com. I am a living testament that these products are outstanding, okay? I've talked about the perfect package and what it all entails, but I'm going to continue to hammer this point home. It's about to get hot outside, okay? It's getting hot in here, so hot. It's getting hot outside. Balls start sweating. You don't need any more extra baggage down there, okay? So go to the leading, some of the industry leaders of below waist trimming. And that's where Manscaped comes into play with their brand new 4.0 lawnmower that gets the job done every single time with its skin safe technology. Going down there, trimming up all of your areas, getting them nice and tidy and neat, because again, it's about to get hot outside, all right? Your balls are gonna sweat, and that's where the next product comes into play. The Crop Preserver, which is a ball deodorant that you put on, okay? If it's gonna sweat, at least not have it smell like a bag of onions. The Crop Preserver is a deodorant that's gonna stop your balls from smelling very musty. Okay, and just in case they get a little tart, here comes the Crop Reviver to get you back in the game. Couple squirts of that, and you're back smelling like brand new. So they give you all of these products in the perfect package. All right, they throw in a pair of underwear. They throw in a travel bag. I mean, these guys are looking out for your best interest. So what are you waiting on? Go to manscaped.com, put in the promo code LouieT to get you 20% off and free shipping. Okay, so once again, go to manscaped.com, put in the promo code LouieT, get you 20% off and free shipping. Use the right tools for the job, okay? You're going to trim up your arms, or under your arms, or your chest hairs, or below the waist. Make sure you use the right tools for the job. Trust me when I tell you this, your balls will thank you. So let's get into In Case You Missed It. Before we do, I do have a couple of super chats that I want to knock out real quick. So bear with me. Vincent Cole, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Vincent Cole. My guy Vincent Cole writes, Lou, bro, check that J. Cole new album yet? Not yet. I saw that it came out today. I knew it was coming out today, actually. He had dropped the single Interlude last week, so that was a precursor that the album was coming. I saw it. I like to listen to music when I can actually listen to it, when I'm not doing something else, when I'm not preoccupied. When I'm working and I'm in that space when I'm working, I listen to things that I don't have to, I can hear. I don't want to listen. So when I'm working and I'm busy, I don't have time to listen. I can only hear. So I just want to hear something that I can maybe sing, or something that I know that I don't have to listen to. If I'm going to put on a J. Cole album, I need to listen. So I didn't have time today to dedicate my ear to listen. I could only hear it, and that's not going to do me any good. So no, I haven't checked it out yet, but I probably have knocked it out by the next time we see each other, which is Monday, more likely than not. Let's see. Got another super chat. This one is from Mark Mullinex. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Mark Mullinex, who writes, they just signed Bobby McCain. Who just signed Bobby McCain? Did Washington sign Bobby McCain? Let's see. I'm going to check real quick. And looks like they are, 1 year deal for Bobby McCain. That's cool. I wasn't looking for him. He's gonna be talked about in case you missed it. So we'll just talk about it then when we get there. So thank you for that, Mark Mullinex. Really appreciate you on the update that Washington signed safety Bobby McCain from the Miami Dolphins. So with that said, let's get to in case you missed it. And we start with the Saints tried to trade up for J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain II, but couldn't get a deal done. So keeping in line with some of the draft conversation that we had earlier in the show, I talked about the Saints wanting to trade up. And I said, I put my ear to the street, and the streets were talking, and they say, look, the Saints, there's no way they're coming out of this draft with 9 players. That's just not how they operate. They're going to make a move or two in this draft, and they'll end up with maybe 6, 7 at the most players. But more likely than not, 5 or 6 guys is what they're going to come out of this draft with, because they're going to trade up at some point. And we know Mickey Loomis has never been afraid to trade. That's his thing. They'll go up and get a guy. They won't hesitate. So they were trying to get into the top 10. And Sean Payton was on the Rich Eisen podcast, the Rich Eisen show, and he essentially flat out said, we spent all morning, the day of the draft, calling teams in the top 10, trying to get up to get one of these guys, and nobody wanted to move. And it's amazing when you think about it, because remember, there were no trades in the top 10. There wasn't a single trade until we got to 10, excuse me. The Cowboys at 10, excuse me. That's when the first trade happened. But remember, by the time we got to 10, both J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain II were both gone. So the Saints wouldn't have been interested in number 10. They were looking to get up to ensure that they were going to get one of those guys. So more likely than not, they placed a call with Detroit at 7, Carolina at 8, and Denver at 9, knowing that more likely than not, in those 3 picks, at least one of those corners would be available, and none of those teams were looking to move. They weren't looking to get out of their pick. And for all the conversation we had about Detroit would be a hot spot and they'd be looking to get out, and and Sean Payton essentially said that, like, all this buzz about all these teams willing to move, the price was just way too high. Atlanta was willing to move, but they were asking for king's ransom. Detroit was willing to move, but they were looking to club somebody over the head. Like, we weren't looking to give up what teams were asking to get from us. So we just had to sit tight. But corner was a big need. He acknowledged that, and they were looking to come up, but they just couldn't get a deal done. In case you missed it, Lions cut former second-round running back Kerryon Johnson. He was a second-round pick in the 2018 draft. It's amazing that you're seeing teams part ways with a lot of these 2018 players that haven't panned out for whatever reason now, because more likely than not, you didn't pick up the 5th-year option on that player, and now they've only got 1 year left on their rookie deal, and so this player isn't of great value to you, so you're looking to move this guy now. Either you're going to cut him or you're going to trade him at this point. And Johnson, it's amazing, because who didn't think Kerryon Johnson was going to be good after that rookie season he turned in? He was really good in that rookie season. Had some nagging injuries, and that was one of the knocks on him coming out of Auburn, was couldn't stay healthy. But if he's healthy, this guy's dangerous. I wanted him in Washington. I remember very vividly in the 2018 draft that Washington was poised to take Kerryon Johnson, and then the Lions traded up in front of Washington, took Kerryon Johnson, which prompted Washington to then move back. And then they selected Darius Geis. How'd that work out for Washington? So either way, Kerryon Johnson now looking for work. And there are a lot of running backs currently on the streets right now looking for work, including Todd Gurley. He's an all true man, yeah, baby. So it's a lot of competition out there for some work. If you're a back like Kerryon Johnson, you just throw him in that scrap heap with the rest of these backs looking for some work and waiting for that phone to ring. So we'll see what happens with Kerryon Johnson, but injuries and just a lack of production. And we saw the writing on the wall when they drafted his replacement essentially last year in the 2nd round out of Georgia. I can't remember his name, but he was really good last year in his rookie season. After week 1's drop that would have given them the win over the Bears, he was really damn good after week number 1. Anyhow, in case you missed it, Miami released team captain Bobby McCain, safety. That's the second team captain that they have released this offseason. If you recall, they released linebacker Kyle Van Noy, who was a team captain last year. And now they've released Bobby McCain, a very well-respected safety and player in that locker room who was looked upon as the quarterback of that defense. Hit the streets. Washington was interested, and reportedly Washington has inked a 1-year deal with Bobby McCain, and so he's going to join the mix at the safety position in Washington. And I can tell you this, Bobby McCain doesn't move the needle for me. I wasn't a massive Bobby McCain fan in Miami. I thought he was a better nickel in terms of a slot player, which is what he was when he first entered the league, than he is a safety. I don't really love him at the safety position. Don't think he's a guy that's going to change the game for you at all. If he were any good, the Dolphins wouldn't be parting ways with him now, would they? So I'm not all that moved by this move. This wasn't a cap casualty like, the Charles Leno Jr. signing was for the Chicago Bears. I think this was more of a, hey man, you all right, but we could do better than you. We can upgrade you. And they just did. And so they moved on, and he's going to come in. He's going to have a chance to compete in Washington. They've got a number of safeties at the safety position right now in Washington. He's going to come in and compete, and we'll see what happens. It's a 1-year deal. So I look at this move similar to the one last year with Sean Davis, signing him in the offseason, in free agency last year. We got all excited about Sean Davis and what he could mean for the defense, and the man didn't even make the roster, was cut during the final stages of the 53-man roster trimming phase. And so you sign this guy you to a 1-year deal, and you get excited, and then they don't even make the football team. That could realistically happen with Bobby McCain. More likely than not, he'll be on the football team. This could spell the end for one Troy Apke, but we'll see. But he is definitely going to he's definitely going to be in the mix at the safety position for the Washington football team. In case you missed it, Frank Ragnow, center for the Detroit Lions, gets a 4-year, $70 million extension, $42 million of it guaranteed, to make him the highest paid center in the league. I remember when Frank Ragnow came out of Arkansas, I said, man, this guy's really good. And you can tell when a player is really good. When a new regime comes in and they're cutting bait left and right, and nobody's left from the last regime, and they hold on to you, and not only do they hold on to you, but they re-up, that's when you know you're well respected and you're a good football player. Because in Detroit, everybody was getting cut loose. Everybody that was anybody was being shown the door. Hell, even Matthew Stafford was like, yo, I'm out. They decided to keep Frank Ragnow, so that tells you that they view him as a part of the solution in Detroit. They're going to have a rebuild going on, and he's a part of that process of rebuilding that organization, and as they like to say, restoring the roar. Restore the roar in Detroit. He's going to be one of the guys that they think can help them do that. So good for Frank Ragnow. He called it life-changing money. I would say $42 million guaranteed is life-changing money indeed. I do have a super chat here that I want to take because it is pertinent to what we just talked about. Rob the GOAT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Rob the GOAT, who writes, "What's up, Lou?" What's up, Rob? He says, Philly got Kerryon Johnson. So the Eagles signed Kerryon Johnson. It's a great signing for them. I really like Kerryon Johnson. He's got to stay healthy. That's been one of his biggest issues. I mean, Miles Sanders, another guy that needs to stay healthy in Philadelphia. But if those guys can stay healthy, that's a nice little combination of backs there between Johnson and Sanders. And so that's a good landing destination for Kerryon Johnson. It's good to see him get off of that scrap heap quickly, because you don't want to stay out on the streets too long, man. It's not safe out there on the streets. So Kerryon Johnson lands in Philadelphia, good spot for him. We'll see if he's able to take advantage of this opportunity with the Eagles or not. Thank you for that. DeAndre Swift was the name of that back that took his spot essentially last year when they drafted him in the second round out of Georgia. Appreciate you for that, Rich. In case you missed it, more draft talk. All right. Giants pissed that the Eagles leapfrogged them to get Devontae Smith in the draft. So, generally speaking, I've said this to you guys many a times, but the draft makes strange bedfellows of sworn enemies. And we've seen that in the past where you think, oh my God, are the Steelers trading with the Ravens? If it makes sense, it's going to happen. Same thing happened here. The Cowboys were sitting at 10. The guys that they wanted either J.C. Horn, and I talked to you guys about this, made it abundantly clear. They wanted a corner. And they wanted either J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain II. They would have been fine with either one of those guys. In my mock draft, remember, I had Philadelphia being spiteful and trading in front of Dallas to get one of the corners, to get the last corner with Philadelphia, with the Denver Broncos. Well, instead of them trading in front of Dallas to be spiteful and get the guy that they wanted in front of Dallas, they traded in front of the Giants. And Dallas was the team that allowed them to do it. And so they traded in front of the Giants, took Devontae Smith, which then prompted, and it set off a chain of events, which then prompted the Giants to say, well, we got no business sitting here at 11. I mean, we could take Rashawn Slater, but no, that's not what we wanted. We wanted the receiver. Let's get out of here. And so they packed their shit up, and they moved back to 20. The Bears came up and got Justin Fields. It's amazing how the draft works. You see how those dominoes fall, and one domino falls, it hits another domino. So J.C. Horn being snatched up at 8 by Carolina then forced Denver to say, well, we might be able to trade back 2 or 3 spots and still get our guy, but now we can't. Surtain is the guy, and now that Horn is gone, we got to take our guy now. So they took Patrick Surtain II. And then Dallas is saying, well, shit, both of our guys are gone. Thought one of them would be here. Both of them are gone. We can get out of here now. So they did. They packed their stuff up, moved back a couple of picks, and then allowed Philadelphia to come up and get Devontae Smith. The Giants said, well, damn, that was the dude we were targeting. So we can pack up our stuff, go back to 20. So the Bears come up, they get Justin Fields, and then here is the linebacker Michael Parsons sitting there for Dallas at 12. So it's amazing how those things happen, but the Giants were not happy about losing out on Devontae Smith. They went to plan B, which ultimately ended up being Kadarius Toney, wide receiver out of Florida. They're not the same, okay? One is a Heisman Trophy winner, and he looks like he's ready to tear the league to shreds. The other is a guy that still has to grow into the position. Even though he's dynamic, he still has a lot of work to do growing into the receiver position. So I find that to be funny, but it's nothing like a little juicy family business. You know how the family do it. Gotta love it. Family business at its best. So, got another super chat. Want to take this real quick before we move on. It's from my guy, Colton Wheeler. Thank you for the super chat, Colton Wheeler. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, I don't know about you, but it feels damn good to have free agents visit Washington and actually choose to sign. Brings a tear to my eye to see what a winning culture to see a winning culture being built. Also, what the hell is up with these 5 division games? So, I love the fact that they're not hasty with these signings. It used to be a time in history where if you came to Washington, we would offer up a contract that was 15% above market value. We wouldn't let you leave the building without signing on the dotted line. And why the hell would you want to leave when you knew damn well you weren't going to get a contract anywhere near the one that we were offering? And we just were desperate. We were thirsty. And that's no longer the deal. Both of these guys that we just signed, and Leno and McCain, both of them left Washington without a contract. And Washington said, look, this is it. This is what we're offering. So we're going to let you know where we stand. You know the offer that's on the table. You can go out there and see if there's something better for you. But this is what we're offering right here. They left, and they ultimately came back and said, all right, this is the best one that's on the table. We'll take it. I love it. We're not compromising. We're not bending over backwards to appease anybody. This is it. This is the offer. Take it or leave it. And so I love the culture that's being built as well. It's fun to watch, and it makes me feel good, but it has to be backed by winning. That's the only way that this culture is going to be able to sustain itself, is if there are substantial steps being taken forward. And that's why this year is big, because you really don't want to take a massive step backwards. But the 5 division games, I'm going to chop up the podcast or the Washington Football Report live from last night where I talked about the schedule. So I'm going to chop that up and put it out for you so you can consume that in a much more digestible serving. However, it was brutal. I told you, the NFL people, because of Daniel Snyder, I'm going to put this on Daniel in Daniel Snyder's lap, because of his shenanigans and the black eye he's cast upon the league, he said, we're going to give you a schedule that's brutal because we coming for your noodle. And I'd rather them do that than come after draft picks. So you gotta take your medicine one way or the other. You can't cry about, hey, I don't want them coming after my draft picks, but then you want to be upset when they say, all right, we ain't gonna touch your draft picks, but we gonna bless you with these 5 straight division games to wrap up your season though. Good luck with that. Okay. I mean, what are you gonna do? Take your medicine. So thank you for the super chat, Colton Wheeler. In case you missed it, Texans seem to be slowly positioning themselves to move on from Deshaun Watson. So, I made a big, much to do about nothing and laughing about them signing Tyrod Taylor to the 1-year deal to give them an opportunity to have someone start in the event that he can't play when the season starts. And it doesn't look like he's going to be able to play. I expect him to be on the exempt list and not be able to play when the season starts, because they want to make sure that this situation, from an optics standpoint, is resolved before they put him back on the field. They don't want women to have charges and accusations of sexual assault being out there, and this guy's still playing football, smiling and having fun. It's not a good look for the league. So there's no way Deshaun Watson, unless this thing is fully resolved by the time September rolls around, there's no way he's playing in any NFL game. So they positioned themselves to at least have a credible starter in the event that he can't go in Tyrod Taylor. But the drafting in the 3rd round of Davis Mills says something else. That says, you know what? F you, Deshaun, okay? So you put us through all of this shit. Then you have this firestorm that comes. You've diminished your trade value. You know what? Maybe we should trade your ass. I think they're positioning themselves to get out of the Deshaun Watson business. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but it feels like they're putting the pieces of the puzzle in place for them to do that if they should decide to move on. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, in case you missed it, Peter King, quote, 60-40 chance. So his percentage right now, 60 he is, 40 he isn't. Traded. Julio is traded by Labor Day. 60-40. Julio is traded by Labor Day. Close quote from Peter King. Now, you know how I feel about Peter King. Not the biggest Peter King fan in the world. However, this is one of those topics that kind of came out when we weren't conversing with one another. This is something that we would have touched on when it first broke, and this happened like 3 weeks ago. Right before the draft, we started hearing about the Falcons potentially offloading Julio Jones because that contract is hellacious. Okay, he's due, I think he's $23 million against the cap this year, and that number, I think it even skyrockets more next year. And if they trade him post June 1, they could save $15 million under the cap next year. So the Falcons are looking, and their GM, Terry Fontenot, has already come out and said, hey, look, man, the contract is what it is. I would love to tell you that Julio's our guy and he's going to be here for the long haul, but you've seen the contract. It is what it is. That's not a ringing endorsement, and if somebody is willing to take on the bread that Julio is owed, I think his ass to get dealt too, man. I listened to what Terry Fontenot had to say, and I told you, I'm really good at reading tea leaves. When people speak, I listen, and I try to cut through the bullshit for you guys. Terry Fontenot has been up front since he's gotten the job. He sounded like a man that was coming to grips with the fact that, hey, I don't know if this, that's part of the reason I don't think they were really looking to move off of number 4, because they, in their minds, were probably thinking to themselves, hey, we probably going to have to trade Julio's ass. And if we're going to do that, Calvin Ridley proved last year when Julio was out of the lineup, he can be a number 1. But we're going to need at least one more target for Matt Ryan to get the football to. Why not Kyle Pitts? Again, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Julio! He's 32. He's no spring chicken. Still a beast. Don't get it twisted. But I think the Falcons are like, man, we trying to clean up the books. We'll see how that goes. In case you missed it, Colts signed left tackle Eric Fisher to a 1-year, $9.4 million deal. So I was really I was intrigued by the Colts' decision to not pull the trigger on a tackle. Remember, I mocked them a tackle in the first round. I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for them to pull the trigger on a tackle. And let me check just to make sure I'm not tripping, but I don't think it ever actually happened. The Colts getting a tackle. Let's check the Colts 2021 draft class and see what they did. They took a tackle in the 7th round, and I kept waiting. I remember watching and seeing as we got to like the 4th or 5th round. I said, if you didn't take one by now, you ain't taking one. Like they ultimately did take one in the 7th round, but I said I don't know. You must have something up your sleeve, and they did. They had their eyes set on former Chiefs left tackle, former #1 overall pick in the draft, Eric Fisher, and they got their man. And now the question is, will he be ready for week 1? All signs point to him not being ready, and all signs point to him starting the season on the PUP list, which means he may not be able to help them for the first month or month and a half of the season. So we'll see what happens. That's an interesting move by the Colts, but we'll see if they feel like they have an in-house replacement. They can maybe shuffle around some guys that may be able to get them through until Fisher is ready to go. But I said this when they got Carson Wentz. You better protect him. We saw what happened last year when the Philadelphia Eagles weren't able to protect him. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. In case you missed it, Charles Leno Jr. released by the Bears and then signed by the Washington football team. So similar to the Bobby McCain situation in Miami where he was released, comes to Washington on a 1-year deal. Charles Leno Jr., I talked about this on the Washington football report already multiple times, so I'm not going to beat this horse. However, just to reiterate this once again, he came to Washington on a visit. They extended their offer to him, told him what the situation was, and I'm pretty sure Ron was very upfront with him. Look, we're not giving you anything. We're not going to crown you the starter right out of the gate. We got guys here that we like. We're perfectly fine with you not signing here, but we would love you to come here and compete for an opportunity to start at left tackle. We do have an opening on the line. It's not filled yet, but we got guys that played very admirably for us last year that we're very comfortable with if you decide to go in a different direction. So he was looking for more reassurance, so he left. He went to Denver, and they got a spot open because Juwan James, their right tackle, who opted out last season and now has torn his Achilles this season, is not going to play for them. They need a right tackle. And so he went to Denver, and they said, hey, look, we don't have a left tackle position open. We got Garrett Bowles. We're good with him. We got a right tackle position. If you want it, it's yours. He's like, I'm a left tackle. I'm not a right tackle. I said, well, that's what we got. So he said, okay. He went back to Washington. Hey, man, y'all still got that contract for me? Signed on the dotted line, 1 year, $5 million. And so he's going to have a chance to compete for the left tackle position. And if I were a betting man, I'd assume he'd end up being the starter week 1. I would not count out Cornelius Lucas, who was pissed about this because apparently he and Charles Leno Jr. were not the best of friends in Chicago. And he backed up Charles Leno Jr., and he's tired of the disrespect if you're following him on socials. So I think you could get a guy that is extremely motivated this offseason, and I love it. That's what competition is supposed to do. Breed this kind of emotion and breed this kind of play and make guys want to play at their best, be in the best shape of their life to come in and show why they belong as the starter. So competition breeds this kind of reaction from folks, and I love it. I want more of it. So, in case you missed it, Packers sign quarterback Blake Bortles. Blake. I love how guys like Blake Bortles keeps getting opportunities in the league. When you're a first-round pick at the quarterback position, specifically when you're a top 5 pick, you just keep getting chances after chances after chances. Now, Blake Bortles, in his defense, did play in an AFC Championship game. You know who else played in an AFC Championship game? Or, shit, 2 of them? Dirty Chaz. Does it make him a good quarterback? Now does it, okay? At the end of the day, the Packers, similar to the Texans, are positioning themselves for life after Rodgers, if in fact this situation goes to the extreme. I don't know if it's going to go there or not. They've approached Rodgers and tried to really calm this situation down. It hasn't worked to this point. I do think a new contract, and Rodgers apparently wants reassurance from the Packers. Not only am I going to get this new money, I need to be reassured that A, you're not going to trade me. B, I'm going to be the starter and you're not going to try to undercut me 2 years from now. I need some guarantees here. I don't know if the Packers are willing to give him that or not. At the end of the day, and I think Aaron Rodgers wants those assurances in writing. And I don't know if the Packers are really looking to do that. And I wouldn't want to do that. Like, what if Aaron Rodgers' arm falls off in 2 years and he's not the same guy, but yet in his contract it says you can't bench me in favor of Jordan Love? Like, that's dumb. Why would you do something like that? So I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you this. Blake Bortles isn't the answer. Damn. And you know what's crazy? Is I was listening to the Packers GM, Brian Gutekunst, I think it was a week ago. And he said, look, Jordan Love is not ready. He's a long way from it, in fact, which is why I think in their mind when they drafted him, I think they felt like, okay, give this guy a year to acclimate himself to the NFL game and kind of learn what it is we're going to be asking of him. And then he should be ready, and maybe we can move on from Aaron then. And then they looked at this kid, and they're like, he is not ready. He's just not ready yet. And they're like, well, shit, we can still roll with Aaron. I mean, Aaron's still on the contract. Aaron's like, nah. Y'all ain't going to be just using me, you know, just to be singing hooks. What I look like? Patty Bell or something like that? Like, you ain't going to just be using me till your young quarterback's ready. What I look like, a young Aaron Rodgers or something like that? Nah, this ain't a Brett Favre situation all over again. Y'all going to reassure me I ain't getting benched, I ain't getting traded or none of that, or I ain't coming back. I don't know what's going to happen, but Blake Bortles damn sure isn't going to make the situation any better for Green Bay. That's for damn sure. Now, I heard that the only reason they signed him was they're not going to have any quarterbacks at camp if Aaron Rodgers decides this is a legitimate thing, this is a real thing, and he's not going to show up for camp. They needed more arms at camp to run their practices, and so they needed a guy. Blake Bortles is a veteran. He's been in the league. That's the excuse that was given. Okay, whatever. We'll see. They better fix this shit. I know that. And we'll see what happens. In case you missed it, Broncos waiving former 4th round pick in 2018 wide receiver Deshaun Hamilton after failing to trade him. They were very vigorously trying to trade Deshaun Hamilton, and they were unsuccessful. And now the news just came out literally before I hopped on this stream with you guys. I read that the reason they couldn't trade him, he tore his ACL. Is it his ACL or is his Achilles? I just know he hurt himself. And speaking of which, in case you missed it, Broncos just cut Jawan James. I saw that one coming a mile away. Once he got injured, first of all, they were not happy that he opted out last year. Everybody had that opportunity and that right. But he gets the injury away from the Broncos facility. They were pissed, beyond pissed. Because I said, had that happened a week prior, then they could have addressed it in the draft. They could have drafted a tackle at 9 instead of drafting, a luxury at that point in Patrick Surtain, because they had already signed 2 corners in Kyle Fuller and Ronald Darby. They didn't have to take a corner there. They were just preparing for life after Kyle Fuller because they only signed him to a 1-year deal. So in their minds, we just take the best player available at 9 at Surtain. They would have taken a tackle if they knew they had a need. They didn't think they had a need because they just signed Jawan James to this lucrative deal. He opts out and then he injures his Achilles. They're like, you know what? Just take your ass home. Just leave. So that is crazy. Anyway, I digress. They couldn't trade Deshaun Hamilton because he's injured. That stings. And I thought he was going to be claimed on waivers by somebody. They haven't put him on waivers yet, but it's pending. I think it's something that's going to take place. And I thought that he was going to be claimed because he can play ball. But that injury is definitely, he's going to have to sit on some ice now. And honestly, this could be the end of his career. I mean, you think about it. He's going to get cut more likely than not. No one's going to claim him. He's out for an entire year. He's going to have to rehab and come back like gangbusters next year and prove to somebody in a tryout situation, hey, I'm still young, and the whether it's his Achilles, or his knee with an ACL, it's all healed up. I'm ready to go, and I can be productive for you. We'll see. That's a devastating injury at this point, especially potentially not being under contract. It's one thing when you do it and you're under contract. At least you know you got somewhere to call home, and they're going to help you with the rehabilitation process. There's somewhere to report. They can see your progress. Team doctor or physician is monitoring your progress. He's not going to have any of that if he gets waived by the Broncos. So that could be rough, but we'll see. In case you missed it, the Kansas City Chiefs trade for cornerback Mike Hughes. I talked about all these 2018 players that are getting moved on from. I already talked about Kerryon Johnson being moved on from by the Lions. I already found a new home in Philadelphia with the Eagles. Talked about the 2018 receiver here, Deshaun Hamilton, being moved on from by the Broncos. And now we're talking about a former first-round pick in the 2018 draft, cornerback Mike Hughes out of Central Florida. Just never, for whatever reason, and really the biggest reason, injuries in Minnesota, never really materialized for the Vikings. Only 24 games he played in 3 years. So out of a possible 48 games, he only participated in half of those games, 24 of them. So last year in 2020, dealt with a neck injury that essentially put him on the shelf and got him on the injury reserve list. It ended his season. So this is a guy that's dealt with a myriad of injuries and just hasn't lived up to the hype. And so the Vikings at this point said, hey, we're not going to re-up your fifth-year option. You got 1 year left on your rookie deal. We're going to go ahead and cut bait. So you can tell when teams want to get rid of a player when trades like this happen, because they gave him and a 7th rounder to get a 6th rounder in exchange. When you do that, you're like, hey, I'm done. Hands are clean, washed. I'm done. So they're done with Mike Hughes. They ship him to Kansas City. I don't know if there's a team in the league that is better at acquiring these types of players than Kansas City. They don't like to spend a ton of money in the secondary. If you've noticed, they spent a lot of money on the Honey Badger. That was it in the secondary. They do not spend a lot of money at the cornerback position. They traded for Kyle Fuller when he was going into the prime of his career on his rookie contract, and right when that contract expired, they let him walk, and Washington ended up re-signing him in free agency. They did not re-sign him. They did not pay him big money. Bashaud Breeland failed his physical in Carolina as a free agent. They said, hey, Bashaud, hey, we love you, bro. How about this 1 year, $5 million deal? Come play for us at Kansas City. He took it. He played well. They won the Super Bowl. Bashaud went out on the streets, thought he was going to find money outside. He realized, damn, don't nobody love Bashaud Breeland? Well, the Chiefs do. You can always come home. You know when I heard that? When I was back home. So what does he do? Go back to Kansas City. Another 1 year, $5 million deal, back with the Chiefs. Oh, cool. They traded for DeAndre Baker. Remember all the shit he went through? Former first-round pick of the Giants, has the offseason debacle where he's robbing folks at gunpoint and all of this stuff. And so the Giants are like, look, we ain't got time for this shit, DeAndre. So they move on from his ass. And then they sign him up, end of the season, put him on the practice squad. He ultimately plays down the stretch in the regular season, and then he fractures his femur bone, which is a rare bone. It's one of the biggest bones in your body. He fractures that. And they say, you know what? You can come back, though. We like what we saw at the end of the season before you got injured. So we're going to bring you back. And now, Mike Hughes. They're like, hey, we ain't spending no money at the cornerback position. We'll get a bunch of young boys in the draft. We'll take your scrap heaps that you don't want. You don't want Mike Hughes? Okay, we'll give you a 7th round pick, a 6th round pick, and we'll take Mike Hughes off your hands. See what we can get out of him. And if he plays well, cool. They probably let his ass walk. If he doesn't, cool, but let his ass walk. But they're going to get something out of him. The Chiefs, boy, I tell you, those are some tricky Chiefs, man. They know where to spend their money. I can tell you that much. They spent it on Chris Jones. They spent it on Patrick Mahomes. They spent it on, or I don't know if they spent it on Tyreek Hill yet. I think they did already. They spent it on Travis Kelce. They know where to spend their money. They ain't spending it at the cornerback position. Anyway, I digress. Thought that was interesting. We know Zimmer loves to draft corners in the first round. You don't always hit on them. But he got rid of this one here. Mike Hughes gone. Now a Kansas City Chief. And then finally, while we're talking about the Chiefs, finally it's interesting. I'm going to just drop this on your melon in passing and we're going to move on. Kelvin Benjamin, Sir Eat-A-Lot, to get a tryout with the Giants in one of these camps in the offseason to see if he'll get an opportunity to maybe make this roster in training camp. Gonna get an invite to one of these mini camps in the offseason. Hopefully he's cut some weight off and he's in much better shape than when he left the league. This brother was right around 250 at the receiver position. Ate his way out of the damn league. After a sparkling rookie season in which he exceeded 1,000 yards, he was ass-tastic after that. And this makes a ton of sense. Who drafted him in 2013 in the first round? You guessed it, Dave Gettleman. So if anybody were going to give him a shot to get back into the league, it'd be the guy that drafted him in the first place, Dave Gettleman. So he's going to get a shot. We'll see what he does with it. I don't know what kind of shape he's in. I can tell you this, more likely than not, one of two things, I'm assuming here, I can't confirm nor deny this, I'm just talking shit, man. This is what I do. One of two things is possible, if not both. One, he could have an itch to play. He just wants to play so bad. Or two, that brother needs some money. All that bread I made early in my career, that shit's running out, man. I need some more money. If I had to pick between the two options, I'd say it was probably more of the latter than the former, but it could be both. Or it could just be the former. He could just love the game and want to play. Either way, he's going to get a chance. I hope he takes advantage of this opportunity. We will see. But that takes us to our final segment of the show. Garbage time. So I just want to run through the primetime games real quick that have caught my attention, that I think are notable games. Ones that I'll be looking for as we get into the primetime schedule. There are a lot of games I could list. You know, Ravens and Chiefs is going to be a really good one. Bills and Chiefs, a rematch of the AFC Championship game should be a dandy. But I got three in particular that I'm going to bring up real quick. And I'm a little different. I'm a little out there. Okay, I'm going to just give you that disclaimer right off the rip. These may not be games that you give a shit about. That's fine. Everybody cares about Bucks at Patriots Week 4 Sunday Night Football. Everybody. I don't give a shit if you have no vested interest. You want to see, first of all, it's going to be a lot of Tom Brady love. It's going to be sickening is what it is. It's going to be Tom Brady porn on Sunday Night Football, similar to the way it was Drew Brees porn the night he broke the passing yardage record on Monday night versus Washington, where it was just it was nauseating. It's going to be the same thing. All right, the fans are going to. Did you see the prices for the tickets to get into the stadium for that game? Like a single ticket right now to get in. I think the lowest ticket is $1,500 right now. It's crazy. I mean, that's the hottest ticket in the 2021 season. Right now, just looking at the primetime games, that's the hottest ticket of any game. Now, that could change, obviously, with the way the season goes. You can get to week 17, and there could be a massive matchup, and that could be a ticket that's hard to get. But for right now, just looking at the schedule, that's the hardest ticket to get. So that's a game I got circled on the calendar. In that same week, week 4, before we get Brady going back to Foxborough, how about Jags and Bengals? The clashing of the previous 2 number 1 overall picks, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, doing battle. And what I think is going to be a fascinating watch, because I think both of those teams are talented. And I think, with proper coaching, and I don't know if they have that in Cincinnati. I don't necessarily trust what they have out there, but We're gonna see. I'm anxious to see Herb. That'll be the first time we'll get a glimpse at Herb and what he's doing in Jacksonville. And Joe Burrow will be back from his injury. And they added Jamar Chase, and they got all these weapons out there that we've talked about. I really like Cincinnati's roster. That should be a fun game. You know, I liken it to Burrow's first appearance on a national stage last year as a rookie against Baker Mayfield. Remember that shootout? That was a lot of fun, wasn't it? 35-30, I believe it was. Week 3, I think it was. That was a lot of fun. I think we're going to see something similar there in Jacksonville at Cincinnati. I think that game's going to be a ton of fun on Thursday night in week number 4. And then finally, this one probably doesn't tickle your fancy at all, and that's fine. But I'm a Zach Wilson fan. And I think this kid's going to light the league up. And I think the Jets are actually going to be a lot better this year than people think. And the only way that's going to happen is if Zach Wilson is what I think he's going to be. And the Jets have stunk. And nobody wants to watch the Jets, and I get it, rightfully so. Saying that, the Jets only got one primetime game, and that is week number 9. So the only time, unless they get flexed some way, somehow, late in the season, the only way we're going to see Zach Wilson and the Jets is week 9 on Thursday Night Football at Indianapolis. I'm intrigued by that game because, one, I want to see Zach Wilson. I want to see what Robert Saleh is doing on a national stage. All right, I want to see all these skill guys that they've added. They added more receivers. They added Corey Davis. You got Denzel Mims from last year's draft. They added the running back Michael Carter from Carolina. All of these different pieces now in the mix in New York for the Jets, and Zach Wilson back there making plays. I want to see it. And then you got Carson Wentz on the other side of things in Indianapolis with the Colts. We would have already seen the Colts. They got the Ravens in like week 5 or so, week 6, somewhere in there. But I want to see what he looks like, what he's doing in Indianapolis, and I think that's going to be a fun game to watch. So I want to see what Zach Wilson looks like. I want to see what Carson Wentz is doing in Indianapolis. So that is another game, week 9, Thursday Night Football, that I've got circled on the calendar among a bunch of games that are circled on the calendar for me during this primetime schedule in 2021. What do you have circled on your calendar? I'd love to hear from you guys. Make sure you leave it in the comment section of this video once this video has uploaded. But with that said, that is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, on this 159th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Told you I was going to try to make this as quick as possible, and still it went an hour and 10 minutes or so, but that's kind of short for what we've been doing of late, so I felt like I stuck true to what I said. Bottom line is, if you haven't already done so, please do your man Louie T a massive favor and subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing, and hit the like button. There's right around 100 of you watching, but we only got 40 likes. I mean, what are we doing, guys? We got to get that thing up to at least 50, right? Seriously, let's at least get it to 50. That's the least we can do on a Friday, right? For your man Louie T. Come on, help a brother out. All right? So, with that said, I thank you guys for joining me on this Friday afternoon/evening. You had a lot of things you could have been doing, but you instead decided to sit here and chop it up with me, your man Louie T, and I couldn't be more appreciative of that. So with that said, I'm now going to glide to the side, allow you to enjoy the rest of your Friday and get this weekend kicked off the right way. I'm going to have me a glass of wine and kick back and unwind and get ready for next week, because I got a ton of content coming out next week, a lot of things to get done. So I'm going to relax the rest of the day, and then we're going to hit the ground running tomorrow and keep it pushing. So without any further ado, get off the bench, get in the game, and keep kicking it with your man, Louie T. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T. This has been the Louie T Network Podcast. See you guys next time. God bless. Good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.